Well, a US teacher who refused to use students' preferred pronouns will get a $723,000 Australian dollars settlement from her school district. Vivian Garrity sued the Jackson local school district after her Ohio school tried to force the Christian art teacher to use preferred pronouns and names or face disciplinary action. The US District Court ruled the school's actions amounted to compelled speech. Lucy, look, it's been more than 8 years now since Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson first sparked controversy by refusing to use preferred pronouns, and he called it compelled speech. There was huge uproar at the time, but I think things are starting to change. I think the world started to turn a corner on this, despite the fact that the school was still trying to force this teacher. I do sense a shift here happening.
I wish it was happening here in Australia, but, you know, we've only got Julia Gillard, who was this self-proclaimed feminist, and unfortunately Attorney General Mark Dreyfus to blame for the current situation that we're in, because in 2013 they made the decision to amend the Sex Discrimination Act to include gender identity, which is why we're seeing things like a team like the Flying Bats in Sydney explode, win leagues, win golden boot trophies, etc. We've got biological men competing in women's sports. We've got them using women's bathrooms, accessing women's-only spaces. It's a disgrace. And so until we actually have legislative change in this particular area, I don't know that we're going to see a shift. I mean, from my perspective, I actually really want to know what Opposition Leader Peter Dutton thinks about this. I actually put in a request to his team this week to come and join me on 2GB afternoons, because I really want to know how he feels. Does the Liberal Party, in fact, have a position on this? And if he is elected into power, is he going to introduce legislative change and put an end to all this madness? Because that's precisely what this is. It's madness.
Liberal Senator Claire Chandler from Tasmania did, and she's a federal Liberal senator. She's been so strong on this issue, Lucy. She had a Save Women's Sport bill, Kel, in order to try and get changes to the Sex Discrimination Act that Lucy mentions, which took out the biological definitions of male and female and replaced it with gender identity. And that's where a lot of the legislative problems we have in this country come from. It's also the fact that gender identity is a protected attribute in our vilification laws, which means it could potentially be an offence in Australia to use someone's the wrong pronouns that someone doesn't like.
Can I say once again, Donald Trump is the point man on this. Yeah. Trump has promised to ban biological men competing with biological women in sport. Now, when Trump does it, he then sets a benchmark for the rest of the world. And Conservative leaders like Dutton are going to see what he does and, I think, be emboldened.
No, but I actually want him to come on the record and say it. I want to know one of the most successful ad campaigns that Donald Trump ran in the lead up to the presidential election was actually that proclaimed, idea that he would put an end to biological men competing in women's sports.
And so what did Peter Dutton's office say when you put
They just said he's not available this week, right? And I still want to, regardless of the timing, I still want to be able to put that question to his office, because I want to know that they have a position on this issue. And it's all well and good for us to applaud Trump and say, look, Trump did this and hopefully we'll follow suit. But as you've rightly pointed out, we have existing legislation that is protecting these members. It also was the slippery slope to allowing for several states, most recently New South Wales, to jump on board with sex self-ID legislation. Now, regardless of how many people came out and spoke at this particular inquiry to argue against this and say how dangerous it is to introduce something like that, it was all completely ignored. Chris Minns was instructing all of his Labor colleagues to vote in support of it, and of course it got up. Queensland's had it for a number of years. We're opening the portal to dangerous predators, pedophiles, rapists, you name it, to be able to go down to births, deaths and marriages, say that they are in fact women and change their birth certificates, and they'll be recognised as that, right? They'll go and commit crimes. It will fall under women's crime statistics. All of these issues will be pointed towards women. And it is a farce and one of the greatest scandals of our time.
Well, look, Peter Dutton has taken a strong view on everything from The Voice to standing in front of the Australian flag and no other at conferences. So if you're watching Mr Dutton, get back to Lucy, get back to us on Sky News. Are you going to take a strong stand on this? Come on Sky News first, though, please. Thank you.